is National Orientation Agency, Rivers State. Our mandate is to communicate government policies, programs and activities to the people and entertain feedback and support for government policies, programs and activities.
To consistently raise awareness, provide timely, credible feedback, positively change attitudes, values and behaviors, accurately, adequately inform, sufficiently mobilize citizens to act in ways to promote peace, harmony and national development.
It is also the vision of the National Orientation Agency to develop a Nigerian society that is orderly, responsible, and disciplined, where citizens demonstrate core values of honesty, hard work, and patriotism, where democratic principles and ideals are upheld, and where peace and social harmony reign.
Remember, change begins with you.
COVID-19 is real.
Stay safe and take responsibility.
This is
National Orientation Agency, Rivers State.
Good day, viewers. So welcome to National Orientation Agency Dialogue. The Dialogue is a weekly sensitization program of the National Orientation Agency, Rivers State, a platform where the agency enlightens citizens on government policies, programs, and activities, and entertain or elicit feedback on those policies, programs, and activities to enable government properly fine-tune our policies and activities. Now, when you talk about waste, we are talking about a byproduct of man's interaction with nature. And we have a whole lot of them. We have solid waste, we have liquid waste, we have medical waste, we have clinical waste, we have degradable and non-biodegradable waste, we have agricultural waste, and just name it. Long list if we continue to name. Now these wastes are seen as waste. But recently, man's inquisitiveness took him further to know that these wastes are actually not waste as they seem, but they could be used for meaningful purposes and other purposes. In fact, they can lead to wealth. Now, we started a series. Last week, we discussed about urban development and waste management. Today, we are still in that series. We're going to discuss waste to wealth, issues and challenges. And today, I have two amiable gentlemen with me in the studio to dissect this properly and make justice to it. On my immediate left, I have Prince SUKUBO, the Director, Project HAVID, Center for Environmental Development, Nigeria. Sir, you're welcome to NOA University Dialogue.
Thank you very much.
And then on my immediate right, I have my friend, my colleague, Sir BENSON, WAMASON, Public Relations Officer, Waste Management Society of Nigeria. Sir, you're welcome to NOA University Dialogue.
Thank you very much.
Viewers at home, we're doing this knowing that you're there. As a matter of fact, this platform is for you to sensitize you, to make you to be abreast with policies of government on a weekly basis. So your comments, your thoughts, your contributions are very, very, very necessary. Keep them coming. Please don't hold them back. My name is Senmo. I am the Community Orientation and Mobilization Officer for OPUBO local government, and I'm your anchor for today. Once again, you're welcome. Let's start on this note. I want to start with you, my good friend Benson, Sir Benson Abu. To the layman on the streets, most of these things we speak because we're trying to enlighten this, the populace. To the layman on the street, how would you explain the concept of waste to wealth to the layman on the street? Because these things seem to be academic a little bit. So for the layman to connect with us and to make meaning out of it, how would you relate to it?
Okay, thank you very much. Waste is anything. It could be material, it could be equipment that is no longer needed by the owner. And because you don't have use for it, you consider it to be a scrap. And now, at that point of it being a scrap, for us in the waste management industry, it becomes a raw material. Because where you stop by saying it has no value, it becomes a raw material for somebody else who knows the value. So at this point, If you have any material and for you it is of no value, somebody else needs it. Well, for that person who needs it, he picks it up from there and can convert it to become something useful or become a source of material for a better things to be created out of it. So waste to wealth is simply what you don't need or obviously become a raw material for somebody else to use to become something useful to the society.
Okay, Prince, well, I want you to come in a little bit from your own perspective. For the layman on the street, you know, the grammar and the terminology may not make too much sense. How would you explain the concept of waste to wealth so that he takes home something?
Well, waste to wealth is advancing that which is considered waste, like he has defined it, so I will go adding value to it by taking it a step further to an entrepreneurship perspective with the sole aim of creating a multiplier benefit economic wise. You employ people and then you reuse that same product. Now, waste, to really understand waste, you must also understand the life cycle analysis of a product from the beginning to cradle. And like the son said, a waste is never a waste until it has gone to the limit of its threshold. That's when you can call it waste. But insofar as it's still within the environment, it can be employed into other uses. For instance, plastics that can be recycled. Polythenes can be recycled.
Okay, thank you. Now, the waste, like we said, to the ordinary man, is something we don't have use for again. But that's where that's where it starts for the other person, to go through some processes and then make something, meaningful out of it. Now, this is quite a process. So if I may ask, sir, what are the steps involved in turning solid or liquid waste to wealth? The processes involved. Let's water down the terminology for understanding for the people out there.
Solid waste. Let's start with the urban center. Solid waste is usually identified with the urban centers, but very unfortunately for us, we're witnesses to times whereby even our the countryside, has now assumed an urban mentality in terms of its waste generation. Now, it involves processes: collection of the waste, sorting the waste according to their compositions, maybe plastics, tins, paper, and all of that. And then eventually taking them for treatment. Plastics, those with thermoplastics resins, that is polythene bags, plastics, and all of that. This can be, you can melt them. Then things like glasses, they can be crushed, mixed with asphalt for road construction. Plastics, they become further resins for plastic companies. These are the processes, the principal processes. You collect the waste, you sort them, and maybe to a center where you take them. There you do all the separation. Some may come and buy, but if you have a plant, you take it to your processing plant for onward recycling. Metal scraps, you shred them. E-waste like computer, electronics, you shred them, you take out the essential components, the ICs and all of that, which have cadmium, heavy metals, chromium and cadmium. You take them out and they can be resold to other industrial uses.
Okay, Sir Benson, I want you to also make a contribution before we go further.
Okay, the processes are, first we'll talk about waste collection. And while doing waste collection, you talk about handling, and then from the handling, you have sorting, Now, at the point of sorting, you do segregation. Now, when you have gone through these processes, you are able to identify the particular waste or materials you need and identify who needs it, when. Because this is very key. Where it comes to play when waste is concerned is if you can have all the waste, but if you are not able to identify somebody who needs it, it will make no sense to you. So you need to identify who needs it and then be able to extend hand, because if you have a large quantity of plastic waste, it's very easy for you to go to NOA, beckon on the guys who have it, and they will be able to come around and get them. But for us in River State, I want to make this clear. You can as well get in touch with NESRA, because they have accredited agents in NESRA that buy what they call it, batteries and plastic waste. So NESRA have these managers who actually can buy from you in large quantity. Now, that's this aspect, the first part of it, I call the logistic aspect of waste to wealth. Now, when you have gotten somebody and the person had done all the collection, at that point in time, he moves it from your own storage area to his own, and then he does what we call, he comes back again, he will go through the process of sorting, he has to wash again, and then be able to stretch these things. If it requires melting, he goes into that, or reusing or recycling, as the case may be. So the second phase of it, that's where the entrepreneurs come to play. And the first phase is anybody who is certified can do the collections. But there are a lot of things that are involved in this aspect now. You getting into this, you must have your PPE. No. For you to be able to handle this logistics, you must have a personal protective equipment. You must have a storage place where you keep these things. You also will have what I call, because you can't do this job alone. You need other people who will do the collection of these bottles, batteries, and all that you need. You get them to pay them. This is where this area now creates a lot of jobs for people on the streets. Because you pay them, you weigh them, depending on the measure you want to take. You weigh them and they buy from you. And at that point in time, you are creating job for these people. So you may not have, because in all our discussion, let me be very frank here, waste management is capital intensive. And because it is capital intensive, not all could go into the entrepreneurship part of it. That is the aspect of converting it from the waste into another product, which has to be that will create work for you over there. I think these are the basic steps or processes that is involved in managing this part. And I must also say here, in this process, waste management is very broad. I keep saying, and I will repeat it again, this aspect of waste management, waste to wealth, is more, in fact, is an industry waiting to be tapped. It's more richer than even the oil and gas industry. You have construction waste, you have, industrial waste, you have domestic waste, you have hazardous waste, different classes of waste. And in each of these classes of waste, you think of the methodology, the method you are going to adopt. At this point, technology comes to play. And technology is very key. Whatever conversion processes you are going to do, you need technology. And then I also want to say here that before now, Nigeria is at the verge of living what I call street economy. Whatever we use, we don't know the value of it. It's just straightforward. You buy, you use, you dispose. And that has created a lot of problems in the society. But right now, we are in a circular economy, or what we call a core economy, where the materials go back again for recycling, reuse, and all that. So at this point, what National Orientation Agency is doing is helping the Nigerian economy to translate from the street economic into the core economic or secular economic. And I think it's a very good job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thank you for that expository, insight into that part of the question. We know that wastes are of different categories. We can go on and on to mention. Now, is it all categories of waste that have the potentials of creating wealth? If yes, how? If no, can we know those wastes that are completely useless? Sir, let me take care of this question first. He will have his own part to come in.
We cannot say waste is completely useless, but for the purposes of this discussion and for the purposes of our, emerging urban centers, there are basic wastes that we interface with on a daily basis within the urban system, like within the waste stream, such as polythene, plastics, e-waste, and other associated waste. But other categories of waste may not immediately have waste, but immediately may not be used, put into use. And like he mentioned earlier, if you listen to him, things like hazardous waste is not something that you just can use immediately. It requires special treatment, special process, a high technology to handle it, and it's for specialized industries. Like those who use uranium for logging in the oil companies, they are handled, and several institutions are involved that monitor how you use it, then the residue, which is the waste, how you package it, to the end point, how you treat it. But for the other ones like polythene, it's the entrepreneurship potentials or prospects are very high. We can collect them; they are flying all around. There are things we can collect, put into use, treat, create employment, generate revenue. Only one of the problems I see with developing world, not only Nigeria, is the resources to come together. Whether you like it or not, some level of technology is always required. Some level of plant must be set up, and it requires fund. And of course, we know our client. How to raise fund is always a problem.
So in this sense, are we saying that there is no waste that is completely useless? Every waste has a value.
Yes.
Okay. Sir Benson, could you add to that? The question is that, is it every waste that has potential to create wealth?
Yes.
And so there are no useless wastes?
In fact, there is no waste.
There's no waste.
The truth is that there is, as long as I'm concerned, the concept of waste is more like an academic thing. When you come into the practical aspects, there's really no waste. What you consider waste may be needed like somebody else. And when the person gets it, there's no longer any waste. Even the woman being you are talking about, you are not a waste. Even when you die, you become a manure to the animals over there. So you become useful to the things around. Now, let's look at it this way. Let me go with the liquid waste and then precisely sewage. This is a potential area that we are not utilizing in this part of this country, especially within the South-South. I can boldly say here, apart from some multinational companies that have a sewage treatment plant, commercially, there is no sewage treatment plant in the whole of the South-South. And what is the implication of this? Now, every waste coming from the household, industries, where do they go to? They all find their ways to the lagoon. And what are we losing? We are losing the wealth in that sewage. What do I mean? Now, for every sewage, you have, when you get it, you have the liquid part and then you have the shaft. Now, when you have a sewage treatment plant, you have a holding tank. You store them until you get to a particular quantity you want to use in the treatment, and then at that level, you start the treatment processes. The water part of it goes through a process which you can treat and water and bottle and become a drinking water. go to Germany, this is obtainable. Now the shaft, you take them off, go through another process, they become organic manure that the agriculture, then the farmers needs. You can dry them, bag them, label them in your own name, and sell them to the farmers, because they are more better off than the inorganic fertilizers that we buy for the farm, because they help the soil to hold the water, the nutritional value is more. But these are things we throw away. Even if a bag of feed, by the time you finish, you get one bag and you sell to those in the farm at a takeaway. It helps the farmer, it boosts his production, and then food all around. And then you make money from it. The employment comes to play. But right now, since we don't have a sewage treatment plant, the only options is they will do what we call collection. We go do evacuation, take them to the dump site, and then we discharge them. And then they have implications on what they call it, on animals, things that we eat. What goes around comes around. So this is the basic fact. That's just an example of sewage. So we must, as a matter of policy, government must be able to go extra mile to finance those who are in this industry. I hear like the Bank of Industry should be able to make funds available for waste managers who wants to go into these areas to be able to do this, so that we can create more jobs for our youth, so that people can be involved. We can create more wealth out of it. I'm talking about sewage now. Now, plastic waste goes through the same process. I remember being a facilitator for Federal Ministry of Commerce and Industry for plastic waste conversions. And I mentioned depending on the type, we have different type of plastics, and classes. Now, there are plastics waste alone. If we go into the recycling, the kind of money we make, you can't imagine. Go to NOA, you see it. Now, you get scavengers. What are they doing collecting this thing? Because there is value in it. Here in this part of this country, we have not come to realize the value. But if you go to the north, they realize this. I have friends, one of the big shops, he's a millionaire. He has this, his name he preferred to be called Babambola. You can imagine somebody saying that you should call him. If you address him, if you not address him as Babambola, he's not satisfied. That is where he makes money. He will tell you that waste money is not dirty.
Sorry, what is Bula? I don't know. It's ability to who assess it.
Yeah, Babambola means that this we collect waste and go and dump it at the dustbin. At that dustbin, he goes there to pick it. So he is the father of those who goes to pick waste from the dustbin.
The father of the scavengers.
So he collects, because when he go there to do this collection, he makes money out of it. And he has come to realize there is so much money in it. In fact, as I speak to you, he's not just only doing the collection of this waste within Nigeria, he goes outside the country, neighboring African countries. He exports this waste across to them. From River State, metal waste, for instance, is useful. The scrap vehicles you have around, they are still useful. They are hazardous waste, yes. They are metal waste, yes. But what do they call it? We have Ajakuta steel. We have Delta steel. They need this as a raw materials for what they are doing. So how many of us have come to, when River State talk about waste to wealth, you go to Lowe's, you see a place fenced there, scrap vehicles are kept there. What has happened to those scrap metals? You go to OPUBO, the same thing. And I remember government talking about waste to wealth, and they have the facilities put in place. Why is it not working? So we need every aspect of waste. You want to talk about, is it agricultural waste, food waste, domestic waste? When you finish, this waste on its own, if you have domestic waste and you want to get organic waste from it, all you need to do is get a place, fence it around, get all your food waste and keep them, and then get caterpillars, these worms and other things there to eat on it. And before you know it, it becomes a manure for you. So there's money from it.
So we'll come back to it. We'll come back. Let's join our correspondents who's on standby from Asarato local government. Mr. Ipalebo Prince-Will. Mr. Ipalebo Prince-Will, your own, please take it on.
Thank you, Mr. Abie Sanibo, the presenter of today's program. I am Mr. Ipalebo Prince-Will, Kumo, Asaritori Local Government Area. I am presently at Buguma, the headquarters of Asaritori Local Government Area. Today we are discussing about waste to wealth, issues and challenges. With me here is Mr. Abie Brown-Harry. Mr. Brown-Harry, what can you say about the topic waste to wealth, issues and challenges? What advice can you give to the government and to the citizenry?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Prince. I want to say that the issue is that there is so much wealth in waste. But the truth of the matter is that government has not done the needful. What do I mean by government doing the needful? Is government to sensitize its citizenry, especially the youth. There are so many graduates out there looking for white-collar job, but it is nowhere to be found. If government can orientate these youths, educate them on how wealth can be extracted from waste, I think it will go a long way in solving government's problem with the youth. So I want to say that government should send out their teams, their people, their agencies that they are sending as regards talking to the people of government policies. These people should go out and orientate the youth so that they will know that indeed there are so much wealth hidden inside of waste. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Abie Brown-Harry. Over to you, Mr. Abie Sanibo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ipalebo Prince-Will. That was a very good and emphatic reporting there. Yeah, before we join our correspondents in Asaritori Local Government, we were discussing and you want to make contributions.
Yes.
So let's just come back.
Just to lay credence to what he said. Late 2020, we conducted an environmental impact assessment on Stellar Marine. And Stellar Marine principally is engaged in acquisition, the buying scrap metals. So in conjunction with the State Ministry of Environment, we were able to do that. Now what they do, they buy up all sorts of metals. They crush them, then convert them into pellets. Now evacuate them. It's located there at Okreka, but a fantastic job. They buy all the metals everywhere. In Port Harcourt, they go beyond River State, but they bring it down here, shred them, reduce the weights into manageable pellets, evacuate them to some point at Aba, reduce them again, and then send some to steel industries, back to China, some to Europe, and some to other African countries where you have steel companies operating, Then the River State Sustainable Development Agency, of course, we know had the Songhai Farm. If you go to Songhai Farm, in an environment we have what we call ecological modernization theory, which is a method of implementing sustainability. Like I said, you will see that the farm operated on a value chain system. So the waste, what you consider waste, is the raw material for the next department. And because of that, they were generating biogas. And the biogas was used in the estate there. They developed their mulch. And they adopted the Israeli system of natural farming. That way, there is no pollution to the soil. There's no pollution to the atmosphere. Methane production is contained because we know naturally, if, for instance, if you're growing rice, a swamp paddy, the guts of the bacteria there releases CH4, which is methane, but it's non-existent. So things are managed in such a way that there is eventually no waste. So waste, I think, is also a resource. Let us redefine waste as a resource that is needed.
Let me just say to you this follow-up question: Where does medical and clinical waste stand in all of this, considering their peculiarities?
Biomedical waste. They are also waste because.
Sincerely, do you think they are converted?
Of course.
They can be convertible.
If human enteric waste, that's your feces, can be treated, which has complex bacteria, can be treated and be converted for another use, as is done in China. Then biomedical waste too can be treated. Used syringe and all of that can be, treated, melted, converted. Gauze, cotton wools, and several other things can be treated and converted and be reused, if not in syringe form, in other forms. And each of these processes will create employment, will generate revenue. That's the essence of waste to wealth. Entrepreneurship. Actually, waste to wealth globally is also a very nascent innovation. Another aspect we've not mentioned is tire. I think India is leading when it comes to tire. The TDUs, that's tire-driven flare plants. They are more in India. What they have in India is even more sophisticated than the types they have in US, well reinforced. And the regulatory framework has made it in such a way that investors and operators run it in such a way that you do not pollute the atmosphere, operating within the polluter pays principle. But bottom line is, it takes incinerate. The plumes going into the atmosphere. And you have vulnerable groups like the geriatrics, that's aged and children, pediatrics. These are vulnerable groups that are used as indices to determine the level of pollution.
Yes, sir. I'm still a little, we are sensitizing the public, the citizenry. What are the entrepreneurial challenges, turning waste to wealth? I know in your discussion you've passed, in passing you mentioned capital, but I want us to settle and discuss this a little more. The entrepreneurial, because from your discussion I perceive that this whole thing is big business. Let me use it. Entrepreneurial is business. It's big business. So what are the challenges? What are the entrepreneurial challenges? Turning waste to wealth.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me say this. One, I'm not just talking here as just the public relations officer of WAMASON. I am into waste management. I'm the managing director of CAPS Integrated Services Limited, and my business is purely waste. And I will tell you that, like I said, it's a very good business, but the challenges in this part of our country, one, enabling environment. We don't have the enabling environment. And when we talk about the enabling environment, take for instance, I desire to set up a sewage treatment plant. In fact, I have partners I have talked with outside the countries, and we all agree. But now, when you do your business plan, the first thing your partners want is to know the return investment. Now, if we don't have the enabling law, that's number one. We don't have the enabling laws. Yes, that will create the environment for this kind of business. Number two, if I'm investing in sewage and there is no law by government to say that dumping of sewage on the sea or the gutter is prohibited, meaning that when that law is in place, it means that government is paving way for private sectors to come in and build. There's no such law. So anybody can dump waste the way you want. And so if I have government, for instance the River State government, coming up with a law prohibiting dumping of sewage in the water and the gutter, nothing stops me from building a sewage treatment plant, because I know every sewage will come towards my business and I'll be able to make my money and that of my partner. And government will also be able to benefit from it because I'll pay tax from there.
So, we are in Bokana local government area, where Mrs. Barikoa Uwe Kabare is on standby. Please take it over. You are on.
Thank you, Mr. Abie Sanigo. I am Barikoa Uwe Kabare, Komo NOA Bokana local government area. With me here is Mr. Debari. Mr. Debari, what do you have to say about this topic, waste to wealth and issues and challenges.
Well, I'm Sibani Debari from Gokana local government. This waste to wealth, I can see that our people's, something that we used to waste before, we used to burn before, now we are no longer burning them again, because people who are buying it, they are close to us and we no longer wasted it. And so our boys have been picking it and kept it, and thereafter they sold them. And not only that, it now increase stealing to our area, because they go extra mile to pick what does not belong to them. The roof houses do a lot of things to make money out of these waste materials, of which is bad to our people, and everybody is complaining here and there. If you can see, this is a place where Hausa men, they used to keep all those things, and those waste products, people, they are breaking houses, do all manner of things to make money out of it. And some of the things we used to burn it before for air pollutions and whatever, we no longer burn them any longer. So, but now, whatever thing that they are doing now is bad. So we are begging the government to come in to make sure that our peoples, they have something doing, so that they can leave all these things that they are doing.
Thank you, Debari, for your response. Over to you, Mr. Abie Sanibo.
Thank you, Garikwa, for your report. Actually, the man raised an issue that I just want us to raise, an issue that I want us to look at. In the name of collecting waste, these Hausa boys, scavengers, they move around and then they, hide in these guys to sometimes pilfer and steal. Something happen. I've seen a couple of people complain. What's your take about this?
Yeah, it's one of the problems I actually intended to talk about. Number one, if you go to Lagos as a typical case study, we have the scavengers have come to stay. We need to accept them because they're adding value to the chain. But they need to be trained. They need to be guided. They need to be registered. Some time ago, I suggested this to the Rivers State government. Now we volunteered WAMASON to train all the scavengers. Give them ID card, let them be registered. So at every locations, the scavengers that are there. If you are not registered and you are into this scavenging business, they arrest you. So, but if within a particular location, these people are there, anything that happens, you go to them and you get your materials. I can tell you, it's more, these scavengers you're talking about, it's more like a cartel. They're very strong in the state, everywhere, because what they do. Going to steal people's property in the name of waste management is not acceptable and is condemnable. That's number one. Number two, it is not only the government that is feeling this impact. Even the general public, government will spend the taxpayers' money to construct roads and the drainage. You have these, what do you call it? The manhole. And that thing is very heavy and very costly. They go there to remove it. A lot of people have lost their life in the course of it, because you may be walking and rain is falling, you don't even know that the place is open and you get fall into it. So that part of it is wrong, and stealing of people's property is wrong. Now, if you go, what we expect then is, the scavengers is, you move around, those who have waste and they want to sell, they call you, you negotiate with them, you buy. You go to the dump site. If you see anything useful to you, you pick over there, but not for you to go and collect people's property. And that is not what it is meant for. So, REWAMA, River State Waste Management Agency, by the law, is meant to regulate this body. And I think that is within their portfolio to be able to regulate. If these people are regulated and they kind of certified, then we'll be able to know who and who is involved in this thing. So it's one of the challenges we have when people go to steal and collect other people's property, it's not part of waste management.
What's your take on this?
Well, it's very true. I've had experiences with this development, particularly in D-line area, where at night, in the guise of picking metal scraps, manholes are broken, metal iron gates are pulled off people's buildings, and residents have had cause to intervene and occasionally even arrested and sometimes maim them. Now, if you go to the railway by Fruits Garden, you will find a whole lot of scraps. Some of them are not scraps. Some that entered people's premises and took it off. And it's something that has to be stopped. Like I said, Rewama needs to come in. The local governments have roles to play in regulating, streamlining all these things. I wanted to say something on plastics in the riverine area concerning the water, because he raised an issue quietly. You have double issue when you have waste floating on the water, because you over time subject or suffocate the ecosystem, the marine ecosystem in particular. When you have a blanket of waste floating on the surface of the water, you shield the euphotic zone of getting the required insulation for the species. So over time, your phytoplankton and zooplankton goes down the euphotic level to the food chain, and it's very, very bad. But if the riverine local governments can really come together, they can set up a structure and mop up this waste, plastic waste. Why am I saying this? Because of the littoral drift, these things move into the ocean. You'll be surprised that as far as Kola, deep in the ocean, you find plastics moving west, east, up to Nimbe, Akasa axis. And it's not just a peculiar problem here, it's also up there in the Pacific, America, Europe, worldwide. But we can do something. We can.
Okay, let's go back to we just said that was Barikoa's, the man there raised this topic in the name, people hide in the name of scavenging and then go to pick some valuable things from the house of people, which he said is not acceptable and that should be condemned. Viewers, you've heard that, be very mindful of these people who hide under this cover to do this. At this point, we will have to join another of our correspondents standing by in Andoni local government. Mr. Samuel Ashibad, you're on. Please take it on.
Mr. Abiesenebo, presenter, NOA River State Dialogue. This is Mr. Samuel Ashibad, Community Orientation and Mobilization Officer, Andoni Local Government, reporting from Ngo Council Headquarters. We are talking on waste to wealth issues and challenges. The things we use, after using them, we throw away what we think is not useful to us again. But we are here to say that they can be used again. I have with me here Mr. Efet Ogaja to do justice to this topic.
Yeah, I'm Olaka Efet Mbaja, citizen of Andoni right here at Tingo. Waste to wealth, issues and challenges. Waste has been defined as the elimination of substance, products that are not put to use after the completion of a process, while wealth is the abundance of valuable possessions or money. The issues here is, Andoni people are predominant fishermen. I discovered that the boat that they use that are bad after some time are not put to generate well. Why? Because those boats that are being abandoned can be burned to charcoal, which can be used to generate well. It can be used as a firewood. It can be used to some part of them to mend spoiled boats, which is also generating well to them. The fish product that they produce, most of the fishes they throw away most of the part of them which can be used to feed poultry farm, can also be used to generate manure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbaja. It's a pleasure having you. And here, Sanibal, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashibad, for your reporting. At this point, I can see the comments. The viewers are actually following up with us. Let us take some comments also to give them a sense of belonging, that they are part and parcel of this conversation. Bridget Ndebio, successful management of waste to wealth requires mapping out modalities for its execution. Bridget Ndebio, thank you very much for your thoughts there. As Mary Akwete is watching with us, Mary, thank you for streaming live with us. Thank you. Peter Ekabie, the process of conversion of waste to for a product that can be put to primary use can be viewed as a process of generating wealth. However, considerable duty of care is required to safeguard the consumers and the larger society. Ekabie, thank you very much for your thoughts. Nkechi Priscilla Energy, you're streaming live with us. Thank you very much. From Ekabie again, landfills considered the last resort in the waste hierarchy. In the waste hierarchy, release methane, a very powerful greenhouse gas linked to climate change and depression of the ozone. Okay, depletion, he means depletion of the ozone layer, leading to poor harvest of agricultural products. Ekabie, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your thoughts there. State Director Young Ayatollah is living life with us. Thank you very much. Bekimo William, waste to wealth can be beneficial where there are functional institutions and organizations, but ours is difficult. Yes, the discussion at least have touched that place. They discuss the framework, we need framework to properly organize it. All the same, thank you very much, Bekimo Williams. Why Kana Command? Incinerating solid waste creates thermal energy, which we can then use to turn turbines and create electricity energy. Thank you very much. I think they mentioned in passing, I think something like that has been mentioned here. Why Kana Command again? The burning of waste at landfills for the purpose of reduce, reuse, and recycle release toxic substance into the air, including externally poisoning dioxin, which leads to issues and challenges. Thank you for your thoughts there. Kobani Benowari, waste should be properly managed to keep the environment healthy. Thank you, Kobani, for your thoughts there. Thank you. Enobonge is watching with us, you're streaming live with us. Rosemary Habia, if our waste is managed properly, we can generate revenue and create employment for our youth. Yes, they have said here, I said it's a big business, in fact, waiting to be tapped. It's a virgin place that has not been, as it were, it's just the surface that has been scratched. That, your thoughts are very much welcome. The discussants have touched here. If Oman Achugobel is watching live with us, thank you very much. Peter Ekebie, how can waste be transferred to wealth or use commodity without harm to the consumers or people close to the factory? Ekebie, thank you for your number here. Nigeria don't have good culture of managing waste. By now, our streets are supposed to be waste littered free. Before, we think of covering it, converting it to wealth. So thank you for your thoughts there. It's true, there's pump waste management. Some of the flat flood you see here, it's actually there's a lot of drainage blockages as a result of waste, which is true. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Let me just take a few here. Charles Williams Opera is watching live. Our Didi, you are watching live with us. Thank you, Ellis Area Napa. You're watching. Let me just take this and then we'll go back to conversation. Charity Gucha, it's in a sound waste management strategy. Every component of waste should be taken into consideration in the management practice. Sustainable ISWM. I don't know what that means. I mean, after now, they will maybe
integrated solid waste management.
Okay, which includes all sectors of the environment that have stake in environment management. Thank you, Charity Good, for your thoughts. Let's go back to, at this point, we'll come back to taking some more thoughts. Let's go back to our discussion. Actually, before all of this, we are discussing that what are the entrepreneurial challenges, because that is where everything boils down to. It's business we are talking here. Yeah. Well, business we are talking here, So that's what we're talking. So we're back. Let's just round it up.
Yeah, quickly, I was talking about the enabling environment. That is the government creating an enabling environment, one.
Yeah.
Number two.
In the form of laws.
Yes, creating the form of laws, policies, so that the businessmen can actually come in.
Yeah.
That's one. Number two, for those who are in the business, you will agree with me there are too many taxation, double taxation in it. And it's scary. First, if you have to do some of this, go into this, no matter how small you are, you need the state permit, you need the DPR, you need Federal Minister of Environment, State Minister of Environment, you need NOSDRA, you need too many things. And most of these things are duplication. Take, for instance, Federal Minister of Environment and NESDRA, they are the same thing. Now, you talk about State Minister of Environment and REWAMA, they are the same thing. And yet you are paying to REWAMA, you are paying to River State Minister of Environment, you are paying to Federal Minister of Environment, you are paying to this. If government can curtail this, it will help the small scale businessman, because this you want to encourage your youth to go into entrepreneurship. And these are opportunities. So you reduce the cost. It will help to reduce costs. Now that's one part. Another aspect of it is, now in Lagos State, one of the things that made Lagos to strive and get involving private sectors is that the Lagos State government came out after accrediting waste managers and everything, now shorted them to the bank. I know I told you that it's capital intensive. Now, so they shorted them through the LOMA, and said, if you want loans to buy equipment and other things or facilities, they will stand and tell the bank that we will pay. This person doesn't pay. And with that, you have so many people in Lagos now that have trucks, that have facilities, and with that, it makes things easier. Then Lagos also went a step further. I'm using Lagos because the population of Lagos and that of Port Harcourt, I don't see too much difference in it. The Lagos and Port Harcourt were created at the same time. And it seems Lagos is taking a step ahead. Now Lagos is generating revenue from their waste. Why we are using the taxpayers' money to manage waste here? We shouldn't be. Now I believe in polluter pay principle, that when you generate your waste, pay for it. By so doing, the private sectors, when they go in, you pay to the private sector, and in turn, they pay to the government, and you generate money from it. So these are the challenges that the waste managers are faced with. Now, the one thing again I want to mention here, which is very peculiar. Now, if you go to buy land, you want to use it for waste. Now, initially when you say you want to buy land, they will want to search for you. But as soon as you tell them you want to go into waste management business, they say, no, I'm not selling the land again. I'm telling you the experience. I'm telling you my own personal experience, not 1, 2, 3 areas. And you ask yourself, what exactly is the reason why the landowners do not want to sell land to people who are going into waste management business? I want to build a sewage treatment plant, and I tell you that this is my plan, this is my drawing, I need about 10 plots of land. And as soon as you mention it, they will say, no, they don't want to give it to you.
Let me come to Prince here. Prince, what's your take? The constraints, the limitations, entrepreneurial constraints, limitations, challenges, from your own perspective. Because this whole thing we're talking is going to boil down to business. It's business. Government will only create an enabling environment. You understand? Business, to thrive. And so, what are those things? Because it's a new place that we're trying to make incursion to inroads. So what are the challenges and what does government need to do?
Well, this is my take. First of all, there has to be a policy. A policy will give birth to a law.
Exactly.
Now you may have two categories of persons. There are those who have the money, but because of the non-existence of these policies and law, will not want to go in because it will sabotage the return on investment, particularly in a situation where they have multiple partners to go into the business. So it's risky. Two, you have the other group, they don't have the resources. Yes, but they have the ideas. That's where the state government, the local government comes in, or any other establishment comes in. You can put them up. Synergy can be created. Just like the way you have cooperatives. Synergy can be created, and then the government can guarantee, and they go in. if you so required to give them some level of training, it's done. But if this framework is put in place, then you can set the ball rolling. At different levels, you will see things flow. There will be fluidity in the entire entrepreneurship, scheme. But if it's not there, it cannot. So it's a very big constraint. Someone may have 500 million naira to go into it, but at some point, once a disconnect is created, the entire fund will go down the drain, and that will discourage it from continuing.
Yeah, this whole thing we're discussing, waste to wealth, management of waste, we're talking about the environment per se. It's environment. Now, they cut down trees for the purpose of papers, deforestation, global warming was still preventing. We go back to them. Now, there is this husk from maize, for making of papers. Studies have shown that the husk, from maize paper can be an alternative, to tree and deforestation in terms of paper manufacturing. What's your take? Let me take you that number. In studies, it is this ox that is gotten from maize that could be an alternative to, cutting down trees for the purpose of paper. Because as far as we're concerned, paper is, is inevitable. Still, we have not gotten to the point of internet where everything will be online. We still need paper to move from table to table in our offices. A lot of things are done with it.
The world can never go paperless. That's the truth. The world will never go paperless. And papers have degrees and all of that. And a lot more research needs to be done. A lot more analysis needs to be carried out. Just like when you say turning food to energy. We need food to eat and you want to convert it. Like the case of coffee, the Brazilians have been undergoing experiments on how to extract the oil from coffee. So how many grams of coffee seeds do you need to extract the required ton of oil? And if you compare it to the volume that will be consumed, there has to be a mathematical model to balance it. So the case of the husk is still ongoing. Not that it's not known, it's known. Deforestation is bad because deforestation eventually leads to dust bowling. And when that happens, you've removed the entire sink. The forest is a massive carbon sink and it converts just like the ocean. There is also the system of for every one tree you fell, before you do it, equivalent of 10 seedlings must have been planted. Like the Kenyan woman, Margaret Late, who came up with that plan. And within a very short time, millions of species of endemic trees, Kenya, sprouted up. And the program is still on. That fetched out the World Nobel Peace Award for Environment. So the corn husk you're talking about is still undergoing research for final approval worldwide.
Sir, can you contribute to that?
Well, what I would simply say is it's an ongoing process. It is good. We urge for us to key into it. We also need the required technology to be able to key into it. So everything, there are a lot of things we need to do, not just only on that, but there are so many areas that we can carry out. I mentioned when I was talking that this is peculiar when you talk about street economic, but in the curve economic or circular economic, that's wonderful because the carton, every other thing, you have to recycle it again. So it will help to reduce, the concept of that is to reduce this cutting of trees and all the rest other things over there. So I think that is taken care of.
Can waste be used to generate electricity?
Yes.
What kind of waste? What's the process? How and what's the process?
you need, for instance, if you go into landfill, which we don't have. But I am happy to announce here that Akwa Ibom is, if you go as you're going to Eket, between Korabasi, before the roundabout, there's a very big plot of land. Yes. I traveled there some few days ago to see what they are doing. They started engineering landfill. And that will go a long way. They can generate electricity in that process. You understand me? So now, when you talk about generating electricity and you don't have a landfill, engineering landfill, how do you do that?
Time is of essence for time. Sir, what employments abound in waste-to-weight value chain? Employment.
Employment, many. Both the educated, the uneducated, low manpower, medium manpower, high manpower will all be required. Or they will all be absorbed. Because from collection to those who treat, to those who handle machines, to those who do, there's a marketing aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
There's a promotion aspect of it. So the stream of employment is broad.
It's massive.
Yes.
At this point, let me just go back and take some few more comments from our viewers. I'm coming back for your last words for attention. Time is far spent. From Archibald, people waste one can be turned into wealth principally due to ignorance. This is why someone come to order to offer money in exchange of what we feel no longer useful to you. One is happy no matter how meager the amount may be. This need therefore for concerted bodies to carry out aggressive awareness campaign on ways to wealth. Thank you very much. Yes, it's an ignorance. As a matter of fact, I've heard for the first time that actually there is no waste. Nothing is actually a waste. But for the layman, it's a waste. So they offer you something. Charles William, Nigeria needs attitudinal reorientation in the area of waste management. If properly managed by government and private sector, will create massive employment and generate wealth. Let us have a rethink in this direction. The discussants have already said this: massive employment. The chain, will be there. If I'm you're all streaming live with us. Thank you. Antonio, you're streaming live with us all the way from Onelga. So, considering the volume of different waste product disposal, the government should encourage the private sector in promoting recycling plants where it can be converted to wealth to create job opportunity. Thank you, Gladys Raston. Informal natural belly. What we call waste is raw materials for further use by farmers and other industries like plastic company. They've said that. Thank you for your thought. Cynthia, if you're streaming live with us, thank you. In most areas, you find out that there are no map out government area people go to dispose their waste. So most times people dispose wrongly. They use it to litter. Yeah, that's actually a challenge. So those of us who come from the riverine community, how is our biological waste product converted to wealth? Since the river is the only source of disposal. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you. Sherita is streaming live with us. You're streaming live with us. Thank you. You're streaming live with us. Thank you. Cynthia, kudos. Yeah, kudos to NOA River State. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody that streamed live with us, we thank you. For your last word, the parting shot for the people.
So the government should wake up. All stakeholders should wake up. And I think it's time for us to put a policy in place and put a law that will really promote the investment in waste, which is a resource.
Sir, your parting shot.
Waste management is everybody's responsibility, individually, family, society, the government, and so we need to cooperate together. And then finally, I want to say that I will urge the government to leave the business of waste to the private sector to drive, while they regulate the policies and everything.
On this note, we will wrap it up for today's dialogue. You've heard, they said, waste management, waste to wealth process should be left to private people. Government, please, if you're watching, create an enabling environment, make it possible for people to go into business. It's a whole lot of, that chain would employ a lot of people, and then actually, put less pressure on government. It's on this note that we round up today's dialogue. River State Dialogue. Everybody that streamed live with us, we want to thank you very much. Your contribution has really robust this conversation today. Sir Benson Agulo, welcome. We thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you oblige us next time when we call.
No problem.
Yeah, Prince, my brother, thank you very much.
No problem.
You're welcome.
Anytime.
We'll still see, we'll be coming from time to time because this is ongoing. It's a weekly program. Whenever we need you next time, I hope you will oblige us again.
Certainly.
Everybody who stream live, please, there are those who could not take your comments and your views for want of time. Please forgive us. It's not because we're taking you for granted. On this note, we'll round up NOA River State Dialogue. Join us same times next week.